A stoush between a group of Gold Coast residents opposed to fire ant treatment on their properties and the National Fire Ant Eradication Program has escalated, with a lawyer being called in. The residents claim biosecurity officers have been, and I quote, very aggressive and assertive. Meanwhile, fire ant officials have called in police to protect them from what they say are hostile homeowners concerned about the chemicals. Mia Behlau from Behlau Associates on the Gold Coast is representing the homeowners. I spoke to her a short time ago and asked her what residents were concerned about.
The residents that I've spoken to are concerned about a number of things. Firstly, the carte blanche application of fire ant treatment in circumstances where their properties are not affected by fire ants. The second issue that has arisen since the treatment program has been implemented across the Gold Coast is the manner in which department officers are communicating with residents and the information that they've been given concerning their property and the rights of officers to come onto their property. And then another issue that residents are concerned about, and these are specific residents who have health issues or chemical sensitivities, their concerns are the impacts of exposure or ingestion of those chemicals and what that might do, or could that exacerbate pre-existing medical conditions.
Are they saying they've had a lack of consultation?
Yes, there's been a significant lack of consultation in many instances. People are first being informed that their properties are going to be subjected to the pesticide baiting when department officers knock on their door, and in some instances those department officers are accompanied by police officers, and that is, becomes quite alarming for some people because they don't understand what it's about, why, and or what their rights are in circumstances where those officers just turn up at their door unannounced without any relevant information for them.
There have been reports that there have been some confronting scenes between residents and fire ant eradication officers, which has led to police accompanying them. Do you know anything about that?
I have heard that and I've read in the newspaper that the department officers have made complaints about certain residents being aggressive or unhelpful. But from my experience and instructions from clients who have had interactions with department officers, it seems to cut both ways. People are concerned when they're affronted unannounced, often with police officers present, asking questions, and the answers are, we will be treating your property. It doesn't really matter what you say. So that does cause concern, and I can understand why there may have been instances where residents have not spoken appropriately to those department officers, but also conversely, anecdotally from what I've been told, department officers aren't very polite and haven't been polite to many people in circumstances where those people say, no, I don't consent to you coming onto my property. I want more information. You need to give me some basis upon which, or legal grounds upon which you say you have a right to bait my property.
Fire eradication officers do have the right under the Biosecurity Act, don't they, to enter properties legally?
Yes, they do. They've got extensive powers under the Biosecurity Act in Queensland to attend on properties and bait, but the legislation does require those biosecurity officers to make reasonable attempts to contact owners of properties to inform them about their proposed attendance on the property and their intention to enter into the premises. But what has been happening, and I'm aware of happening in some instances, that no reasonable attempts are being made to locate clients or inform them of their intention to enter their premises, which is a breach of the Biosecurity Act. And going further, one instance in Reedy Creek in October of 2024, those biosecurity officers, when that resident was not home, scaled their fence and deposited a large application of the pesticide across the backyard of that resident without their knowledge or consent.
So they came home and found the baits in their backyard and wondered how someone had got in, is that right?
That's correct. And then upon that resident speaking to neighbours, they were informed that they saw biosecurity officers and police scaling the fence. There was also a note left in that person's letterbox informing them that that was observed by people in the neighbourhood.
Have you had any discussions with the Fire Ant Eradication Program about this sort of behaviour that's been reported to you?
Yes, I've written to the department specifically in relation to that instance, which I spoke to. I've just mentioned to you. I have not had a single acknowledgement from the department in relation to that that complaint or those issues raised. So there was just no response whatsoever. But in relation to other people, I have also spoken to the Director General of the department, and the position that the department are taking is that they're sympathetic to people's personal circumstances. However, they intend to bait 100% of the properties in the relevant areas. So that is to say their KPI is 100%, irrespective of whether or not a person may have a reasonable excuse to reject or oppose fire ant officers and or police officers attending on their property. And those reasonable excuses are usually, it's a case-by-case basis, but medical related. There are people with significant respiratory issues on the Gold Coast who elect to live a toxic-free lifestyle, rurally or semi-rurally. They live off their land, they have water tanks, and they're concerned about the pesticides being sprayed onto their roofs from aerial spraying, or going into their garden beds, into food or produce or livestock that they live from. So that concern of the 100% application KPI fails to consider or reasonably consider the personal circumstances of people who may be adversely impacted by the effects of those chemicals.
That's Mia Behlau from the Gold Coast Behlau Associates. Speaking there, she is representing a number of residents of the Gold Coast who are opposed to fire ant treatment on their properties. There has been a stoush ongoing for a couple of months where the residents are opposed to the way the baits are being applied, and they don't agree with people coming onto their properties. Under the Biosecurity Act, fire ant officers can come onto their properties. And I will have a full statement from the National Fire Ant Eradication Program after the news, which is coming up very soon. Perhaps you've had an experience with the fire ant team, or even just with fire ants, and I'd love to hear from you if you have. The number to call is 1300 222 612, or you can text 0467 922 612. Fire ants were first discovered in Queensland at the Port of Brisbane in 2001, hitchhiked their way in on a ship, it's thought. That's not the only place where they've come into the country. They have also been detected and eradicated at other locations, also ports, but they have really taken hold in southeast Queensland and spread into northern New South Wales. Can we eradicate them? Can we control them? All that remains to be seen. My name's Kathy Schnetzling. Coming up after the break, after the news, I will have a response from the fire ant team to the complaints that have been made by some of those residents on the Gold Coast.